Hey y'all, welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill, and in spirit, Miss Minutes, because she's always with us. How you doing, Kels? Happy Monday. We're doing this weird thing where we record 2 days in a row, but y'all see the podcast 1 week in a week by week. So for you, it's been a full week without seeing us, but for me and Kels, it's been like less than 24 hours. Actually, a little bit more than 24 hours. But how you doing, Kels?
Good. In the 24 hours since I've last seen you, Dill, I've managed to get a sore throat.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like some big news or something, but I mean I guess that's big news. We care about you deeply here. We want to make sure you're okay.
I wish it was better news than that, but I've just been I'm on a lot of cold medicine right now, so I'm feeling like a little loopy, a little out of it.
That's fine. Well, it's good because we've talked about all these 9 shows, so it's not like you got to like really rack your brain or go through any notes or anything. You just kind of got to have your ranking and then explain why some shows are over other shows. So
Exactly.
Ugh.
What is that? What's wrong, Dill?
So Hal's seltzers, we're New Yorkers, we know it's like the best seltzer around, but they do these different flavors, and this is the vanilla cream version. I've never had it.
Oh God.
I was like, I've never seen vanilla seltzer, and it's nasty.
Yeah.
But I gotta drink it because I need to stay hydrated. I don't have a sore throat, but I spent the whole day recording self tapes for auditions, so I'm just like tired. And that segues me into my next point. I am not doing film auditions. I am not SAG, but it's important to bring up the fact that actors are striking right now. And writers are striking, so support your actors, support your writers. Check the bio or the description below for links on how to support those guilds and to stand in solidarity. This is criticism, not promotion. We are not promoting these films. In most cases, we're telling you not to watch these shows and films, especially for a few of these shows cases. But we are not a promotional website. We are a criticism source of criticism, not a source of promotion. So just to clarify that, I'm putting that disclaimer at the top of every single video I make from now till the end of the strike. So, but yeah, I spent my own day hustling as a struggling actor myself. So Kelsey and I know the grind. Kelsey, any other news to report aside from your ailing throat? And anything on updates on thoughts on strikes or anything in general?
Dill, I have like an itty bitty baby piece of Marvel news.
Oh, itty bitty baby. Hold on, let me get my itty bitty baby Groot here. All right. We want to listen. What's going on?
Little bitty baby Groot. Okay, for the itty bitty baby news. Okay, so as you know, I was making sure I had all of the Disney Plus shows that were ranking today. I wanted to make sure that I got all of them. So I went to Disney Plus and I went to the Marvel section and I noticed that the background for the Marvel, like the Marvel page on Disney Plus is completely different. It's completely changed right now. And they've updated the characters that are in the background of the Marvel section on Disney Plus. And so we've had Sam Wilson there for a while. Loki's been there, I'm pretty sure. And I think Shang-Chi might have been there since his movie came out. But we also have an addition of Jennifer Walters from She-Hulk in her full She-Hulkness. We have Yelena there. Wanda's there next to Sam Wilson. We have Nick Fury in the background behind Sam Wilson now. Carol Danvers is right next to him, and right next to her is Shuri from Wakanda Forever in her full Black Panther getup. So we have a little bit of an update, a little bit maybe more of an idea of kind of who's going to be the main focus going forward now of Phase 5, which is exciting. Or they might just be switching out characters as, projects come out. And, like Secret Invasion just finished up right now. So that might be why Nick Fury's there. He might be swapped out for someone else when another show or movie comes along. But I don't know. I just thought I was like, this looks different from the last I've seen it.
Right? Well, I mean, if they had debuted Disney Plus by putting Shuri in the Black Panther costume, that would have been a spoiler. So I'm glad they're updating it, but I'm glad they're also not posting too early, like, giving it some time. So yeah, I know we said we would talk about the Loki trailer this week. Did you watch it yet? I forgot to take notes on it, but
I forgot to watch it.
Okay, so we'll do it next week. No problem. I actually don't know what next week is going to be. Me and Kelsey didn't really even discuss it, so it'll be something. It might be trivia. It might just be an episode of something. We'll figure it out and we'll let you know. I'll post it on the Facebook page what that'll be. But today we're just ranking the 9 main shows on Disney Plus. Yes, technically there are 10, but I Am Groot is 5 shorts. They're not really. It's not really a series. There's no actual connection there aside from the obvious being Groot. And we're not ranking the holiday special or Werewolf by Night because those are essentially little movies rather than series. We're doing the 9 series proper, being WandaVision, Fat W's, Loki, What If, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and Secret Invasion. Those all have fuller titles, some of them, but I shortened them to the easiest way to rattle them off. So how do you want to do this, Kelsey? You want to just go back and forth? Do you want to maybe how do you want to do it?
I think we should just go, tit for tat. We'll just go back and forth.
And so if it's higher on someone else's list, we'll just don't say where it is, but we'll just say that's higher, but let's talk about it now. Or do you want to save if it's in our top 3, we'll save it for later.
If it's in our, Dale. Oh, this is.
I know we really should have come up with a game plan before I press record, even though I press record 7 times anyway.
If it's in your top 3, we'll talk about it during the top 3 time.
Okay, I have a feeling we might even have the same top 3, so that'll be very, very interesting.
Right?
Maybe not.
Cool. Maybe we'll see.
Do you want to take it away with your number 9, Kels?
Yeah,
sure. At the same time.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to go 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, ready? 1, 2,
3. Wanda. Just kidding. Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion. No. I just have to be did you do this backwards still?
Tell me, Kels, Secret Invasion.
This was just a really insufferable watch experience as a Marvel fan. I pretty much said everything that I needed to say about this show last week. But during our finale review, but yeah, it just did not need to exist. It didn't make me nor really dislike Nick Fury in any way. My feelings towards him kind of has just stayed the same throughout this entire franchise, and this show didn't change anything for me. And I just think it was rather pointless. So that is why it's my number 9.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I just think it's a bland representation of Nick Fury. This was supposed to be his project, and it didn't. I mean, he was the star of it. He was in everything, but it was still just, I don't know. It just didn't have any life to it. I think the general conceit and premise of Skrulls infiltrating the United States or our world, and we need to get rid of them. And it's not even the United States, it's London, which they really don't engage with at all. You kind of forget where it's set because it's so bland and undistinct and unpronounced.
Right.
But it's these Skrulls have taken over. We got to seek out which ones are there and kill them or whatever. And that whole premise is kind of icky because it's we're supposed to be looking at the Skrulls as the bad guys, but then if you replace Skrulls with immigrants, then it's would we really want to be watching a show where the government's just trying to hunt down immigrants? I don't like that. I think that's kind of a very old type of thinking that I think we as a nation have kind of gone past, and we accept immigrants. We want to see growth, and to villainize the Skrulls. And then it ends in a place where I think it could have started. It could have started with the whole, spoiler alert, now the government is the enemy, and we have to root for the Skrulls to make sure they don't get taken out by the government. It's such a weird distinguishing what they decided to make us root for versus root against. The Rhodey stuff is so confusing and complicated, and not in a way where I'm what just happened? I'm too dumb to kind of. It's not it's too intelligent for me. It's no, we get what's going on. It's just confusing in terms of why, not what. So. Yeah, just awful. And I don't think the writing's good. I don't think the pacing, it's not entertaining. If it was a mess but entertaining, fine. But it's just not.
Right.
So, yeah. Not a fan. I feel we have more to say, but we've just been talking a whole month about it. So if y'all want to see our deep thoughts, go watch those. Because we're gonna be a little more positive from here on out because we like the rest of them. Or at least think they're okay. Yeah. This is the only one I think is outright bad. And then there's one more that I'm just but the rest I'm they're good. So what is your number 8, Kels?
Dill, this was like so much harder than I thought it was gonna be. Once I realized that there were only 9 shows that we were ranking, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so quick and easy. Um, and basically, like, I came up with a system of how I was gonna do it. I came up with my 5 category system. I rated them all out of 5, and then, whatever the number was out of 25, that's where they fell on my list. And then I kind of, shuffled some things around, made it more accurate. And my deciding factor for what I was going to move where was basically it came down to how likely I was going to rewatch this series. And so that kind of changed things up for me in an unexpected way. And I'm not even still super confident in what my list turned out to be. Okay. All that to say, my number 8 is Hawkeye.
Okay. It's a little higher on my list, so we'll get there when we get there. But tell me about Hawkeye. Why it's your number 8?
I just I've never been that invested in the character of Clint Barton. And I feel like the most interesting things to come out of that series is obviously we're all excited about the future of Kate Bishop and Haley Steinfeld, and we got some great Florence Pugh stuff in Hawkeye with Yelena and Kate Bishop's dynamic, and that's exciting to see moving forward. But then we also got this weird plot twist that Laura Barton was fully a secret agent for SHIELD, and she had this whole past history that we don't know about, so maybe we're going to delve more into that in the future of the MCU. But I don't know if we're getting any more Clint. It's just I don't know. And obviously it takes place during Christmas, so it has kind of that theme to help it out, because I feel like sometimes these shows don't have a clear vision or direction that they're going to go in, but because this one is very holiday, it kind of has that to lean up against. But I didn't think that the villain was that strong.
Baby Groot went rolling.
Oh. He didn't like what I was saying about Hawkeye. I didn't think the villain was that strong in this. And
which one? That's the problem.
Exactly, because there was too many to keep track
Echo,
of.
Is it Kingpin? Is it her mom? Is it Jack, or is it who's the last villain? I'm forgetting. Yelena. There's 5.
Yeah. But I am excited for the future of Echo. I'm excited to see that character more.
Who were you referring to when you said you thought the villain was weak? Kingpin?
I was referring to her mom.
See, there you go. That's one of the problems, I think, is we don't even know who the villain of the show is.
So that's my number 8.
Cool. I'll talk more about it when we get there, but I agree with you in terms of just too much. It's too much going on. It could have just been more single focused, but we'll get there when we get there. My number 8. Maybe higher for you. This is kind of another along the lines of when I go back to rewatch, this was originally higher on my ranking than my number 7. But I think when I go to rewatch, I'll rewatch the other one more. So I'm going to put Miss Marvel at 8.
That's really interesting. 3? No.
Okay. So I'll talk about it now, and then you can talk about it when we get to yours. But I think the problem for me is that the first episode is so strong, and I like a lot of things in the final episode, but everything in the middle, when they journey back in time, that could have been, we've talked about it, its own season, its own second season. I didn't think that needed to be in this show. I think this show could have been just focused on her at school being a kid. I think that's one of the things that I think the Spider-Man movies sometimes got really well, is that he was still a kid and he was on a field trip and he had a crush. That's why I like Far From Home so much. Whereas No Way Home, it's now he's got to be an adult, even though he's still a kid. And that's what I kind of like more about Far From Home than No Way Home, is that they let him be a kid. Here they let her be a kid, and then they were like, no, now you got to be a superhero, and forget that you're a kid almost. And I like the stuff at high school better. I've said on the record I don't like Bruno, and I think for something that's setting up the X-Men in the MCU, I almost forgot that this set up the X-Men in the MCU with the whole mutants drop. But it just feels like it could have had a bigger. It's more stakes in general. I do think that the highlight though was her. I think she's really fun, dynamic, really great. The ice cream pizza thing is still iconic. That whole exchange, that scene. There are moments I like, but I also think it's a little geared toward maybe a younger audience than I am. And I know I'm not the hard target demographic, but I do think for its representation and for a bunch of other reasons, it's definitely higher than Secret Invasion. But I just think I just don't think I'd go back to rewatch it as much as some of the others. That's really all it comes down to. I like it, but it's just not, I like the character more than I like the show around her, basically.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, all that is super fair, Dill. I can my ranking of Ms. Marvel is not too far away. It's at number 6. So
okay, so we'll
talk. Soon. We'll talk about our number 7s, and then I'll say what I got to say about Ms. Marvel.
So what's your number 7, Kels?
My number 7 is What If.
That's my number 7. Yeah, that was my number 8, and then I switched to Ms. Marvel because you talk about it first, and then I'll tell you why I switched it.
It was really the rewatchability for me. I mean, so one of the categories that I had when I first was, trying to rank these shows was just how like memorable I found them to be, like off the dome. Like, what could I tell you about the show? What was it about? What were some of the crazy, shocking moments that happened? And, this show is like, it's kind of like an anthology series in a way, right until like the last, few episodes where they kind of connect at the end. But like each episode is so different that it's kind of hard to keep track of, the first episode I think is Captain Carter, and then the second episode might be the Chadwick Boseman episode. And then, so it was kind of like getting jumbled in my head a little bit to kind of keep track of, all the different variations of, characters and storylines that we saw. But, that kind of made it higher for me, higher than Secret Invasion and Hawkeye, just because that fact, it's kind of like a double-edged sword in a way where, like, yes, that kind of makes it less, like, super memorable for me, but it also makes me want to go back and rewatch it because it, it's like, oh, how did the zombies episode go again? Like, oh, I want to watch that one. And then that's the other thing. It's like some episodes were definitely, more entertaining than others. Like zombies, I think, is everyone's like favorite to come out of that series. And then just like Thor trashing Earth and like being a huge frat guy is probably on like the lower end for me. Like that's an episode I can do without. Right. So like, it's an interesting series, and I'm glad there's going to be more, places to explore and different characters and narratives to explore with the show. But it's definitely in my lower half as far as these series go.
Yeah, that's totally fair. It's at my number 7 as well. I honestly think the reason I put it above Ms. Marvel is in rewatchability. Like, I will go back and watch a zombie episode multiple times because I think it's just a really good, like, 30 minutes of zombie TV shows. Like, I love zombie TV shows. Like, I'm a sucker for, like, Walking Dead and stuff. So, like, that I think is just a very well executed episode. I also love the Doctor Strange one. That's actually my favorite episode. The one where he turns back time. It's really emotional for me. Like, that one really gets me. That's kind of why I like it more than Multiverse of Madness, because I think it gets even more emotional than that film. But I will say, yeah, there's an inconsistency because I think some episodes are so strong and some are so weak. I don't think there's really like a middle ground. I think it's either like this is boring, forgettable, or like this is awesome. And I think that's the problem with What If. But I think the awesome moments make it more rewatchable. And I think just the fact that it has such a distinct style, being animation, it is kind of refreshing in a way. It's like, if I want something different, it's going to give me something different than any of these shows are going to give me, and I think that's something that we kind of take for granted with that series because it's a little disjointed. And I don't think they should have connected it at the end. I think the beauty of it was that it stood alone. Like, that's so cool. Like, it's like you're opening up comic books and then you throw one out and open the next one. But now it's like, oh, it's all connected and multiverse. And I was just kind of sick of it at that point where I was like, come on now. So I hope the second season, I think that's another thing too, is if am I looking forward more to a second season of What If or like a second season of Secret Invasion or Ms. Marvel? I mean, we're getting a movie for Ms. Marvel, so I'm not really hungry for a second series, but like I'm really excited for a second series of What If because I think there's some cool stories we could still explore. So like I'm excited for that. So that's why it was my number 7. So what is your number 6, Kels?
My number 6 is Ms. Marvel. Cool. And like you just said, Dill, what I think bumped it up for me on this list was one of my categories was how excited it made me for the future for either this storyline, this character, whatever it was. And I am really excited to see Iman Vellani in the Marvels, coming up in November. And I'm excited for the future of this character and what it's all going to mean and what her role is going to be in the MCU moving forward. Yeah. And I think that's, what it came down to. Also, the biggest thing that I remembered when I was just thinking back to this series was like the aesthetic of it all and how they had those, moments where the text would pop up on screen in a fun way, and like the transitions and the cinematography, and it was those things that
especially
really kind of
episode
like
1, they just like went all
right,
out with that, and I
right,
love
exactly. It was just like super fun and different, which made me kind of want to just rewatch the show just to relive all of those moments and like the moments with her guidance counselor that we love so much from this series. And so yeah, it's at a comfortable number 6 for me.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I think that's right.
My number 6, you say comfortable, and I feel like that's good for this one because like this is just a very comfortable show for me. It's She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Is that in your top 3?
Cool. No, that's actually my number 5.
Cool. So I'll talk about it real quick, and then I'll throw it over to you. But yeah, I like She-Hulk. I think it's good. Like I like the fact that it's a breath of fresh air in terms of being a sitcom, not like this like mini series. It's not a movie that's split up into pieces. It feels like you could throw on episode 3 or episode 5 or episode 2 in any order really, and then you're still gonna kind of get the gist. Yes, there is kind of an overarching story, like especially toward the end, but it still feels like almost like your greatest sitcoms ever, New Girl, Friends, like these shows that it's like you turn it on, you're gonna enjoy it. You don't necessarily need to watch it from beginning to end, which I appreciate about it. And I like the messaging. I think it's a little on the nose, but for the MCU that hasn't really tackled themes like it, I think it's okay to be on the nose. Barbie's an example of a movie right now that's very clear with its messaging. It's not subtle, but I don't think subtlety is necessarily important sometimes when you're trying to get the furthest reach possible. And I think She-Hulk, for lack of a better word, really grows on you and and is larger than life at times, and I like that. I think it's fun to kind of explore what it's like to be a lawyer in this universe. Daredevil's a much darker side, and this is a much brighter, kind of alternate side of it. So I like it a lot, and I think she's great. She is awesome.
Yeah, this is another performance that is super great in the MCU, and I'm so excited for what Jennifer Walters and Tatiana Maslany is going to be doing in the future in this franchise. Yeah, Jill, this is my number 5 just because it's good to have projects in the MCU that are on the lighter side because they can all feel kind of really like heavy and intense sometimes. And I just feel like it's good to have a rewatch where it's just like a silly, goofy time. Like a lot of people got mad at this series because like it was kind of a mess, but it's like a mess that like it doesn't make you have to think too hard. You know what I mean? Like you could just like throw this on in the background and like do something kooky crazy while you're doing it. And it's a great performance. It's a show that just makes me be like, yay, women. And for those reasons I had to put it at least in my top 5.
Yeah. It's funny, Kels, because I think we have the same top 4, because my number 5 is one you already talked about, which is Hawkeye. I did put this a little higher, and I actually have an opposite take than you. I actually felt it was consistent and with tone, and that made it enjoyable to rewatch. I've actually rewatched this more than any other series, and I think it's because it's probably like the easiest to just digest. It's not too heavy. You're never gonna like feel like, whoa, okay, that's heavy drama. It's all kind of light, but not light in the fact that it feels just unimportant and like you can just kind of like chuffa. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's actually got some substance to it. But I do agree with you in the fact that it's just too jumbled. It's like there's just way too much going on to where I wish they just eliminated one or two, not all of them, but just like one or two plot points. Like save the like I don't even think you needed Yelena. I love her, but like if she didn't show up, I don't necessarily think you even, the show works fine without her. And I hate to say that because I love her, but same with Kingpin. Like if you just make it about Echo wanting to get revenge because Hawkeye killed her dad, and then the mom betraying the daughter, like I think that's enough, But again, Yelena, Florence Pugh is so good, and Vincent D'Onofrio is so good as Kingpin, so I get why they included them, and I like seeing them.
Yeah,
and I think the Christmas vibe makes it more enjoyable and rewatchable for me because, like, yeah, it's just an easy vibe to settle into. And I mean, my crush on Haley Steinfeld grows deeper with every day. So, like, that's kind of also another reason why, like, if I have a choice to watch any show, I'm going to watch the one where Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh talk to each other over mac and cheese and sriracha, because I want to be eating sriracha and mac and cheese with both of them and then taking them both out to a fancy dinner where we can get like lobster mac and cheese and sriracha. And now I just want to date them both, and I love them both. And you know,
wow.
oh, they're sorry, tangent, but yeah, no, I like it. It's fun. And that third episode, I think, is genuinely some of the best actual like cinematography and action. Like that one take with all the arrows and shit. Like it goes into that scene with all the arrows. Like I think that's a really good scene. So
right, yeah.
I'm a fan. It's just like not like one of those shows where I'm like, oh my god, Hawkeye. You know, like the other four, I think are like, whoa, they had moments that blew my mind. So that's why Hawkeye's lower, but it's in my top 5. I like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, Dill, you're right. It is fun. And I wasn't saying that like the Christmas theme was like a problem for me. I'm just saying that it was like you said, it's like an easy you know, it's an easy watch that you can just throw on. It's also something that I feel like, I don't know, for me personally, I like to watch Christmassy themed things during Christmas time.
So you don't maybe like rock. Okay, that's why it's not as rewatchable, because you don't watch it 11 months out of the year. That's fair.
And the only thing is that because, you know, we're probably not getting more Clint in the MCU, is that, you know, if they wanted a moment where Yelena and Clint kind of had like a head-to-head about Natasha's death, and there was no other place to put it really than in this series, and which, you know, it would have been cool if it was, you know, part of like a movie going forward or something or other, just to, you know, make this series feel like it can breathe a little bit, because it is jam-packed full of a lot of stuff.
Or just make it longer, you know, like I don't know. That's
or make it longer, yeah.
Time. You know, like make some of these shows longer. If you have more storylines, great, but just spread it out. Like New Girl, how many episodes are in each season of New Girl? So many, and it like has time to breathe. You know, like make a 30 episode season. I don't care. They don't have the budget for it, obviously. I think it's also the actors they hire. They can't afford. You know,
right?
So I don't know.
The overarching, I feel like, problems with ever since these Disney Plus shows have started coming out is that they don't really commit to them being TV shows. Like the number one complaint ever since, not really for WandaVision, but like for Falcon and the Winter Soldier especially, is that they just feel like 6-hour long movies that are broken up into episodes. And so they're gaslighting us into making us believe that it's a TV show, when in reality it's not, and they very well could be. And I wish they just like committed to the bit a little bit more and weren't afraid to, you know, make second seasons with shows, or just like make them a little longer. Like why even pop out all these mini series if they're not going to be proper series like Daredevil and The Punisher and Defenders and all those were.
Miniseries is an interesting like bridge, because it's like you don't have to be episodic in a way that like some TV shows are, but also like I think you can do a miniseries if you truly have to tell a long story and don't have the time to tell it. That's when a miniseries is okay. But like that's the problem with these shows, is I don't think their stories necessarily warrant 6 hours. You know, I think they could get the stories across in 2.5. That's the difference. If it's a show that like every single episode like feels important and needs to happen, then like I would be fine with it. But it's just like, and one of the shows that we're about to talk about later is, but like I think, you know, you either have to go the episodic route of just like use it and actually commit to it being like a TV show, like have it be very episodic, like Adventure of the Day, like not a lot of connection, or if it's going to be a mini series, prove why it couldn't be told in 2 or 3 hours. And I think that's the issue with some of these shows. What's your number 4, Kels?
My number 4 is Loki.
Okay, that's in my top 3, but we're about to get to the top 3 anyway, so just talk to me about it now. It's not my number
1. You know, Loki had a very distinct, what I can remember just off the top of my head, Loki having a very distinct vibe to it. The soundtrack was really good. The score behind, you know, each episode was great. You know, I love the character of Loki and Tom Hiddleston's performance as this character. You know, it kind of opened up an opportunity for Endgame for that to not be the last time we ever saw Loki, which is great because we all love Loki so much. And obviously it set up our character, our villain, our main villain for phase 5 in the MCU. So there's a lot of great stuff happening in Loki. But then there's also a lot of weird stuff that happens in Loki, like that entire Lamentus episode where they're stuck on the planet and then they miraculously get off the planet. And there's also the relationship between Loki and Sylvie that people don't love. But I am excited for the fact that we are getting Loki season 2 because I'm ready for, questions to be answered and for what we can really expect moving forward, because I feel like it was Loki that really opened up the possibility of the multiverse to us. And like No Way Home kind of just like really propelled that forward, and obviously Multiverse of Madness, but it was really Loki that kind of like gave us the timelines and how everything worked and who was in charge of it all. So yeah, it's just outside my top 3 just because I like the other 3 just a little bit more, and I'm probably more likely to rewatch the other 3 more than I am this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll talk about Loki later, but yeah, I agree. Number 4, I have Fat W's, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I knew it was coming. It was coming.
Well, and we're about to get to your top 3 too, so we'll talk about it with you soon. So I'll talk about it now, but like I think it's really solid. Like I think it's better than, like, honestly, most people will probably have this in their bottom third of their ranking. It's right outside my top 3. It's number 4. Like I think it's so solid, especially with character work and how they evolve these characters. Not as much Bucky, more Sam. I think Bucky is gets a lot of growth, but like it's really Sam who gets the main arc here. But I think that's fine. I think what it has to say about race is good, and I think Bucky kind of adds just like an extra element to kind of break it up a little bit to where it's not just all, because then if it's all just about one black guy and race, there's going to be a whole contingent of people who are going to have a problem with it, of course, because that's how America works, which is a shame. But I really, really like Wyatt Russell's character, John Walker. Like, not like him, but like his arc. I think it's such an interesting addition to the series. That it just makes it so interesting. Like, just this whole idea of what it means to take up a mantle of a superhero, because we've never really seen a superhero show where no one actually wants to be a superhero. We've never seen someone be like, like, this is not what I want. I don't want this pressure. I don't want the spotlight. You don't know what this means for me. Every time you see a superhero, it's like, yeah, I'm a superhero. Or yeah, that's kind of it, like everyone's just so excited, like Spider-Man, I'm a superhero, Mr. Stark, and it's like we've never seen this other angle. So I really love that aspect of it. I mean, could it have been just a movie? Probably. I think the Carly Morgenthau stuff, because of COVID, was severely, hurt, because that was originally supposed to be about a vaccine and all these things that now they changed because of COVID. And I think COVID had a lot of things to do with the faults of the show, but I don't think those faults are very often. Like I think that really, I don't know why people don't like it so much. Like I really think, again, like She-Hulk, like they're on the nose a little bit about their messaging, but like this is Marvel is essentially, yes, it's for everyone, but like kids love Marvel, and you want to be able to make some messaging that like kids can grasp. And I think that's what the show does really well. I mean, Don Cheadle too, like great performance. I mean, he got an Emmy nomination for it. You know what I mean?
Random. Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, he's great, but it was more of a joke because that's still the wildest thing that's the only Emmy the show got nominated for. I think it's really solid. It gave us Zemo dancing. It literally turned Kelsey from a Zemo hater to a Zemo lover. If everyone doesn't remember, our villains ranking, our first one, she had him ranked really low. She hated Zemo. She's like, who's this guy? And I'm like, give him a chance. And then she ended up being a lover of him. So much so that you can't see it, but her whole wall that she's facing is covered in Zemo posters. Yeah.
It's my Zemo shrine. Listen, I'd show you guys, but it's really for my eyes only. So
it's okay. So what's your number 3, Kels?
Honestly, Dill, everything that you said, Falcon and Winter Soldier is not my number 3. My number 3 is kind of shocking. But everything that you just said about Falcon and Winter Soldier is like, you just confirmed, you just added to every reason why I love that show so much.
Yeah.
But my number 3 is actually WandaVision.
Oh, surprise. Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because WandaVision was great. Obviously, we can probably say, like, objectively that WandaVision is probably the best thing to come out of Phase 4. Possibly. I don't know. Or at least one of the best things to come out of Phase 4.
I wouldn't say objectively, but like very strong chance.
But then Multiverse of Madness happened. And one of my categories was obviously like, two of my categories were kind of went hand in hand. And I looked at like, how did this project serve the MCU? Service is not a verb. How did this project serve the MCU? And am I excited for the future based off of everything that happened in this project? And the future of this character, the main character being Wanda, kind of already happened, and it happened in Multiverse of Madness. And it was weird to watch her go through the same arc kind of twice, but in the first instance, she was just holding a town captive, and in the second instance, she was trying to murder a child to get her children from a different multiverse to this one. And like, obviously, like, Elizabeth Olsen gives a great performance in that movie. It's probably like the highlight, the standout for everyone from that movie. And it's a very interesting take because of Sam Raimi's, horror influence with that movie. But it was just weird, like watching her go through everything that she went through in WandaVision and then kind of have to go through it again in a second movie. So really, it's not even WandaVision's fault why it's my number 3. It's kind of just because what they did, multiverse kind of ruins WandaVision for me. What I'm trying to say.
No, I see what you mean. Well, I'll talk about WandaVision a little later, but like, I'll be honest, I think that's more of a criticism, Multiverse of Madness and WandaVision. But I can see if you've watched WandaVision since, that now the WandaVision doesn't stick as hard.
Yeah.
Having watched Multiverse of Madness, I'll tell you right now, I have not watched WandaVision since seeing Multiverse of Madness. So like, I'm still reeling from it. So I think I will take your advice and never watch WandaVision again. No, I will probably watch it again someday. But like, I really think you got a good point. Like, watching something else could influence your opinion on something you loved. It could tarnish it. Like a lot of people, Star Wars, like when Force Awakens came out, and this is, I'm not going to spoil it for you this time. You don't have to take off the headphones. But like when Force Awakens came out, everyone loved it. It was a hit. Almost everyone saw it. I guess Kelsey didn't. But like I saw it 4 times in theaters. Like it was a huge phenomenon hit. Then the other 2 movies came out. This 8th movie was controversial. The 9th movie, a lot of people hated. And a lot of people then, now in retrospect, kind of film Twitter or FilmX or whatever, the film community now kind of soured on the whole trilogy. People don't really like Force Awakens at all because they think it's not paid off well in 9. They only like 8 because it's kind of different than the other 2, or they don't like 8 or 9 and they do like Force Awakens, but not as much as they did when they first came out. So that totally stands. Like you could see something and then see something later that tarnishes that. That's fine. But
yeah, and maybe that's like, a little unfair.
No,
people might be listening and being like, "Well, that doesn't make any sense."
Well, we are ranking these. We're not telling you this is everyone's ranking. These are our rankings, right. And for you personally, as Kelsey, that's how you feel, and that's how you should feel. But then don't wear the shirt if you're gonna. I'm kidding.
No, it's just it was my only Disney Plus themed shirt.
I was a joke.
I thought.
My number 3 is Moon Knight. We haven't talked about it yet. I love Moon Knight. I think it's great. I think it's the best acting in the MCU by none, by far, bar none. I combined by far and bar none into one phrase.
And you said by far.
By far. Yeah, I think Oscar Isaac is terrific. He's the reason to watch it. But like, I kind of love the Egyptian mythology to it. I think the CGI is it's okay, but I like the direction and how they like utilize the multi-personality or DID. The way they like kind of just explore that and like frame that and shoot that, and I think it's DID, something identity disorder. So like I love the way they portray that through the camera work and through the editing and what we see versus what we don't see. That first episode in particular, kind of introducing us to this concept by not telling us all the answers and letting us figure it out for ourselves is awesome. I think the needle drops are great. Opening with a Bob Dylan song as he's squeaking his feet into his sandals with the glass in them, and then going into the Man Without Love song with him and waking up in bed, like so good. But the problem is, the difference is between this and Miss Marvel is Miss Marvel first episode's great and then the rest of it isn't as much for me. This one, it continues that high, and the ending, the last few episodes really hit some great highs as well. So I really love it. There are moments where I'm like, okay. But I do think this one justifies its length a little bit. Like, I think they could have made this a 2 or 3 hour movie, but like, this one is a little less egregious in the conversation we had earlier about should it just be a movie or a TV show. Like I think this one gets away with it well enough. But the other two above it, I think, get away with it a little bit better or a little more TV than movie. But like, it's still great. And Oscar Isaac is amazing. I hope he comes back in some respect. Maybe not with the Avengers though. I'd like to just kind of keep him on his own. But
right. That's the thing, Dill. Like when they're done well, you can kind of forgive them a little bit for being just like a mini series. It's like not really a mini series because there's not a ton of like B plots or side characters going through anything. It's really just about the main guy. But when it's done well, in an instance like Moon Knight, you kind of you give it a pass. You give it a freebie.
What's your number 2, Kels?
My number 2 is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
All right.
Yeah, so everything that you said times a million. I love just like the character arcs in this show. I love the dynamic of Sam and Bucky. I love that Captain America, Sam Wilson. There's a lot of important conversations that happen around this show especially Sam, but also like no one. I feel like Bucky's arc kind of gets a little, lost in the sauce a little bit because obviously Sam Wilson becoming Captain America is super important and super amazing, but also like Bucky's own little like kind of inner turmoil that he's going through with and can kind of come out of on the other side of by the end of the show is also really, really great to watch because someone pointed this out to me online when like the show was like just coming out, but like he went from in that series to like having a fail safe on his vibranium arm just in case something bad happened, right? Like we saw that when the Dora Milaje shows up in like maybe the 3rd or 4th episode. And there's kind of a way to deactivate it, if like he ever goes rogue, to by the end of the series allowing Sarah's 2 young sons to like kind of play on it and like hang off of it. And it's like he's kind of found this way to like really trust himself and trust his own brain and trust that he's not going to like go rogue one day, go Winter Soldier one day and like be around, family and friends and children and all this great stuff. And yeah, I just think it's written well, it's executed well. I know some people are disappointed in that Power Broker reveal. I'm excited to see where that takes us. Sharon Carter doing her thing, and I'm just so excited for the next Captain America movie. So, for all those reasons, it's my number 2.
There you go. My number 2 is one you already talked about, Loki. Cool. I love it. I mean, Miss Minutes, my favorite MCU character. But like I just love the vibes of it. I think the style is so unique. Like I look at every frame of Loki, I'm like, that's Loki. Like it doesn't feel MCU, it feels Loki. Like it feels like its own distinct character, personality, vibe, tone. Like I love it. And I do like how it, this is a show where they were clearly like, you know what, we can't tell the story in 6 episodes, so we're going to tell half of it, leave you on a cliffhanger and bring you a second season. Yeah. Exactly what we talked about earlier. Like it knows exactly how long it needs to be. Every episode feels warranted. I love the first initial build up to revealing who Sylvie is, but then like after that, just kind of letting them kind of talk and just have character moments. What? An episode without action? What? Yeah, sometimes that's the most intriguing stuff ever. And then ending it with something more action packed, but then not ending it on something action packed, but then ending it on this final like quieter moment with Jonathan Major's character, who now in retrospect we'll see what happens with, but the fights, the big action stuff kind of happens in the penultimate episode, and I just like it. I think it's honestly the most coherent, as interesting as it is, because it is solo all over the place. It's the most easy to grasp concept of the multiverse I think we've gotten in any of these. Like I feel like every multiverse film we're always kind of head scratching, like, wait, what did this, whereas I think Loki, especially in that last episode, kind of really lays it out well, so like we can kind of understand it. And I wish more of the shows kind of just kind of follow this structure and like at least kind of refer back to this. Whereas I feel like the Loki effect, we haven't really seen this particular series kind of in effect on everything else. And you would think that, like, the whole stuff with No Way Home, Doctor Strange and everything, that felt like its own separate multiversal thing. Like, that didn't seem connected to this at all. And this was supposedly the, like, big connector of all that multiverse stuff. So hopefully we get a little more in season 2. In terms of that, just because I want an answer to this, the whole thing, and I want it to kind of end the whole multiverse thing. I'm kind of sick of it already.
Right.
But it's nice that we're at least getting explained what's going on in that show in Loki. So I really like it. I think Tom Hiddleston, I've gone on the record saying I didn't really love Loki before this show. I thought he was okay, but like everyone else was goo goo gaga over Loki, and I never really got it. Watching this, I get it. I like Loki. He's cool. Like I like the character. I didn't really get it before then. I was just kind of like, hey, he's Loki's whatever. I didn't like him in the Avengers, and then in Thor Ragnarok and Thor: The Dark World, I was like, okay, he's interesting. I like their relationship, but this is the first show where I was like, I really like him as a character, and I'm like on the Loki train. And now when I watch Infinity War back, now I actually get upset, which I never used to. So props to this. Hey y'all, greatest jump scare in history.
Crazy how minutes in that moment. It's your big takeaway from Loki. That I love that. Jill, I think what makes Loki such an interesting character is that there's always that potential for him to do the right thing and for him to do the thing that we don't expect him to do, which is maybe to help Thor or aid the Avengers in some way. Or, there's always that split second where he keeps you wondering like, oh, is he actually going to do the right thing here? And sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. It's like, he's the god of mischief. It's always a mystery with him. So I think that's why people get so intrigued by him, or at least that's why I am, because there's that with other villains in the MCU, like maybe we saw this moment a little bit with Killmonger. That's really the only villain that comes to mind, but like you don't really feel that there's a way to redeem them at all. Like there's really no coming back from what they do. But with Loki, there's always kind of that opportunity or that potential for a redemption arc, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah,
that's why
that's a great point.
I love Loki.
Kelsey, tell us why the certain dual personality Oscar Isaac is your number one.
Moon Knight is my number.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, Moon Knight is my number one because it's just like you said, Dill, the best acting. I'd say him and Tatiana Maslany are the two like best performances to come out of all these series.
I'd agree. Elizabeth Olsen for WandaVision, maybe also like.
For sure. She's definitely up there. But this is just an incredible performance and just like a lot of great action. It feels very much like its own thing. It takes a lot of twists and turns. It's very reminiscent of WandaVision, where it was kind of keeping us on our toes, keeping us, questioning each week what was going on, and from the get-go, like we get introduced to Stephen Grant, who isn't even really the main character. The main character is Mark Spector, but we get introduced to his alternate. What am I trying to say? Alternate. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Alternate. You'll turn it to the left. Turn it to the left. Turn it to the right.
Okay, this is just gonna become one of that like other word I can't say that I will not be saying at this time.
Inevitable.
Yeah, whatever. Rub it in.
Ominous.
His alternate, and then he's like getting, he's fighting with this scarab, and I like how they really push the envelope with like the fight scenes. They kind of reminded me a little bit of like the Deadpool-ness of like the grittiness and the graphicness of it all, and I like how it felt like they didn't really hold back when it came to the series, and also another great performance from the series, and it was just a voice, F. Murray Abraham.
Yeah. Yep.
As Khonshu.
Yet, Kelsey?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Yes, I have. And that's another great performance by him. A very, very different from Khonshu, but still a very good performance nonetheless.
Hitting on young Italian women on a father-son trip. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I can honestly kind of see it actually. But and our Jake Lockley reveal at the end.
Yeah.
So we have that to look forward to. So yeah, it's my number one because it was great.
Sweet.
It was really, really great.
Yeah, and my number one is WandaVision. It's a basic pick, but like
right.
I just loved it. I think it's
fair.
I think it's because no show, except for maybe Moon Knight and Loki at times, captured that magic of I need the next episode. I am so excited. The conversation around it. And we were in a pandemic, so it was kind of like a breath of fresh air at the time. Yes, Multiverse of Madness in retrospect kind of undermines a lot of the character growth in this thing, but I don't think that's this show's fault. I think this is a great show, and I think it uses the cinematic format in terms of its visuals, but the TV format in its episodicness. And I just love the behind the scenes, seeing how they filmed all those classic black and white things, like the way they painted him blue to get that black and white effect of him being red, like that was exciting to see, because it's like now Marvel's not just going for the green screen thing, like it's actually making an effort to feel different stylistically. And even Loki, even Moon Knight, all these shows I love, they still feel very digital and CG, but this one, it has its moments with the hex, but like ultimately it feels like a lot of time was spent on it. And I think that's what shows. And I love the performances. I think it's a great homage to other cinema while also blazing trails for a TV, but blazing trails for future TV as well. I really love it. I think it gave us some great characters. I think Agatha's a great villain. I think Monica Rambeau is a fun character to see in this older iteration. It got us a lot of Darcy and Jimmy Woo. Again, there's that B plot you were asking for in a lot of these shows. We get one here. We get a bunch. Vision has his own story, as does Wanda, as does Jimmy and Darcy. So I really like it. The kids are great. They are not singing creepy songs about ice cream in this one. They're just being cute kids. I really like it. I think it's great. I haven't rewatched it since Multiverse of Madness, though, so this could change. But for this ranking and the purposes of it, and just like, I feel good with that as like the number one. But these top four, honestly, we both have the same top four. Like, I think any of them could be contenders. You know what I mean? So there you go. There you have it. I could try to add it up if you have any thoughts on this list in general, and then I'll tell you what our added totals are.
Well, like I said, the biggest issue with these Disney Plus shows was that it felt like at times they didn't commit. But they all just feel very aggressively kind of mid, very middle of the road. But for the most part, there's still good moments that happen in each of them. Maybe not for Secret Invasion. I can't, we just finished watching it, and I can't really think of one redeemable quality in that whole show. But for the most part, all of them have something that was special or different or unique about them that at least made them worth the watch.
I agree. Yeah. So I do have our totals here. It's actually very interesting. We only have 6 places for nine shows, and I'll explain it. In 6th place, with 18 points, Secret Invasion. So it honestly got a bump up 3 spots. So congratulations, Secret Invasion. You're only the 6th best rather than the 9th best. You lucked out by some ties. Number 5, tied with 14 points, is What If and Miss Marvel. Solid
Makes
place
sense.
there. Number 4 with 13 points is Hawkeye. Number 3 with 11 points is She-Hulk. Number 2, tied with 6 points, is Fat W's and Loki. And then number 1 with 4 points is another tie of WandaVision and Moon Knight, because it was my 1 in your 3 and then your 1 in my 3. So it actually works out perfectly. Our number ones are the number 1. Like, we don't have to fight it out or anything. Not that we ever do anyway. But yeah, it's great. That's a great ranking. It was fun. A short little episode for you this week, just because it's like, there's not much to say about some of these shows, considering we just covered some of them. But it was fun to kind of just like give a briefing now before we get into Loki season 2, and then What If season 2, and then the Marvels is going to come out. Like, we're going to get the second half of Loki, What If, and Miss Marvel, like those sequels we were talking about. We're going to get those stories continued. Captain America as well, with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, we're going to see of these shows, WandaVision is the only one that's kind of had a follow-up. So it's nice that we're going to get something from all these shows. Even She-Hulk, she'll be in Daredevil. So like, I'm excited for that, to see these characters kind of get that second chapter now in this phase, post-COVID phase. because it is technically phase 5, not 4, but like this post-COVID general phase. All right, Kels, any other thoughts? Obviously, we don't know what we're doing next week. It'll probably be either trivia or some sort of something fun, maybe an Avengers movie club. I don't know. We'll talk. But any last thoughts on this?
No, just you could find me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You can follow me on TikTok at Cause13.
There you go. You can follow me at Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter. Yes, Twitter. That's what I'm going to keep calling it.
Stick it to the man, Dill.
Until I got handcuffs on my wrists. Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok, or the Dill Pickle Movie Network TikTok. Posting daily content. I hate that word content, but posting daily videos because it's not content, it's art.
Yes,
movie games,
our craft
every single day. Yes, posting our craft daily. And then Dill Pickle Movie Network on TikTok or on YouTube. And then stick around. There's so much stuff to come. Kelsey, you gotta come on Recipe for Reality and tell us how The Bachelorette is, because Zach and I are not watching this season.
I would love to,
because we stopped watching Bachelorette a few seasons ago after the whole I forget what fiasco it was, but we were just kind of like fed up with producers, so we stopped watching. But we're gonna be starting the Golden Bachelor. We're getting back into it with the Golden Bachelor. So
nice.
when that comes on, if you want to talk about the premiere with Zach and I, because discretion to all you viewers out there, Kelsey and I are recording now because she has to run in an hour to watch Bachelorette with her friend, and I miss those nights, but at the same time I just don't have it in me to go back and watch Bachelor. But the Golden Bachelor is intriguing enough to where I'm like, I'm gonna watch that. So Zach and I are gonna do that, so we'd love to have you on for that, and then to give us like your thoughts on Bachelorette. Did you watch the last Bachelor as well as Zach's season?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, those are the 2 seasons we haven't watched. Zach and then whoever I don't even know the girl's name.
Charity. Her name is.
So Zach and Charity's seasons, if you want to give us just like an overview of like what those were like, and then we'll talk about the Golden Bachelor. Maybe we'll have you on a few times to talk about that, because
Dill, I would love it. I would love to.
We need to talk about stuff that's not struck, and reality television is not. Yay. Except for Jeopardy, who has Writers Guilds writing the questions. So now they're just going to recycle questions from old seasons. I think it's dumb. Whatever.
Crazy.
Yeah. Support your writers, support your actors. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week with something. We'll figure it out. We'll see you.